Welcome, everyone. Today's guest is Oscar Flechas. And if you've been involved in the Passive House movement at all, you may have, or you should have heard about Oscar, but let me give you a little bit of introduction. Oscar has more than 25 years of experience. He is the principal of Flechas Architecture, a registered architect in Alberta, British Columbia, and Colombia, as well as a certified passive house designer. Oscar is very passionate about sustainability and social justice, and his longtime focus on low energy and low carbon buildings led him to very early on embrace the passive house standard as a means to helping reduce Canada's carbon footprint. One of the few architects, he is one of the few architects certified as a passive house designer. Oscar is an active supporter of Passive House. He's also a founding member and president of Passive House Alberta. So welcome, Oscar. Before I go any further, though, I just want to make a land acknowledgement. I want to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous people of all the lands that we're on today while we meet here on this virtual program. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we each call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility to improving relationships between nations and improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. So from coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of the Inuit, First Nation, and Métis people who call this land home. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Oscar to the conversation. And thank you, Oscar, for being here today with us.
No, thank you, Chris, for the invitation and having me here just to talk about Passive House.
Yeah, well, and it's judging by the view out the back of your window, you've got some wonderful weather in Calgary. We always do the Canadian thing here on Passive House Canada, and that's first to complain about the weather, no matter where we are. But it's nice to see that you've got some sunshine. Let's start off sort of at a very high level and get your background and how you became interested in Passive House. Why Passive House?
Yeah, I have to say history is a little bit right at the beginning of Passive House in Canada, really. The first building really on the recent Passive House movement was the Oscar House at the Olympic in Whistler. Right. So that came as a flat pack at that time. And I was a good friend, and I'm still good friend with the engineer that was signing that, Robert Marching for an Equilibrium. And Robert said to me, Oscar, I want to renovate my house. I think that you're the right architect, but I want to do something like this. So we went to he showed me what it was done in Whistler, and I said, we cannot, we don't have those type of windows or anything like that. We can't. Longest story short, at some point, the window manufacturers of that one, I think that it was Up the Wind, said, you know what, we can provide you windows and things like that. And with the great help also from Econ Group, Marcel, and at that time was Guido Beamers involved. Robert said, let's do it. Let's try it. Let's see if we can make it happen. And that's what the kind of the first attempt really to do it, knowing that we didn't have many of the things required to make it happen. We also discovered a second thing, that it was planning department. The planning department was not at the time aware of this thing, and they were asking things that of course will make this impossible to happen. So it was a lot of conversations going back and forth, saying this is the right thing to do. I don't know how many people is familiar. This house was in Kitsilano in Vancouver, and it has kind of a heritage type of idea. So it was really hard to get through the process of making it happen.
Right,
But
right. Well, there's a lot of important things you've just touched on. Chief among them, I've heard from many people who saw the Austria House, that passive house in Whistler, BC, as part of the Olympics, the Winter Olympics, really sparked the interest of a lot of people, including the then mayor of Vancouver, who said, could we use these principles in Vancouver? And the rest, as they say, is history, because Vancouver has led the way in green building, a more climate friendly building. You mentioned Marcel, that's Marcel Studer, who is still very active with Passive House Canada, especially in our education, in fact, sits on the board. And Guido Wiemers, who has been a great supporter of Passive House across Canada. So it's interesting, all of these folks and the tie-ins to that Passive House in Whistler. It really, we really do owe Austria a thank you for bringing it to our attention in a very important way. You've also mentioned another issue that I think we continue to deal with today, maybe not as much, and that is, when we're trying to build these buildings in some municipalities, there has been difficulty in past working with building departments, planning departments, that sort of thing. How is that for you today? Are you still running into the same problems?
Yes, it's there's still a lot of convincing that you have to do. So right. That adds time to the process of for anyone. Really, it's just to the extra steps, probably the extra money, the extra drawings, the extra hearings and things like that, just to get the project through the approval process. So that hasn't really changed much, and I have to say the bigger the municipality, the harder it is just to make it happen. So I think the book is probably thicker or something like that. And of course, you need to play by the rules. That's technically what happens. So it's a matter of knowing that and going through that. What you see is that people is way more receptive these days to this type of proposal that it was before. And you see it even that the book has been relaxing. Some other jurisdictions, they said, oh, if you go here, we're gonna put you on the express line through that. But I think that we need more of that in different areas. That BC probably is a little bit ahead on that. We here in Alberta are a little bit behind on that issue. Like, again, I have now 2 multifamily projects, one in Edmonton, one here in Calgary, and has been the same. The reception in Edmonton for our project was kind of great. We were proposing something completely different that it was not on the books, but everyone was kind of okay. The inside the city, they were like, we want to see that happen and things like that. So it's great to see something like that. The thing is that it still takes effort to do it for something that should be kind of implemented on the guidelines or books that we have.
So we at Passive House Canada have been working with building officials, especially in British Columbia. A little bit more work across Canada at the municipal level, but clearly from your experience, we need to do a lot more. You know, our focus has always been on architects, engineers, those folks involved in the National Building Code, those kinds of things. And we forget, the importance of our local building officials. So we need to make sure that that they're on board and educated. My own experience has been that when they are brought up to speed, they're really enthusiastic. In fact, they can become some of our biggest boosters within a municipality. So for anyone who's planning a passive house project in an area where there hasn't been one before, maybe make sure you do some groundwork and you get your building officials, your planners on board. And who knows, as Oscar said, there are municipal jurisdictions where passive house projects, because they help municipalities get to their climate emission reduction goals, they are moved to the front of the line or they're sped up. So very good point, Oscar. But let's take a minute. I'm interested in some of the work you've done. You know, I know there's a number of projects, but you touched a little bit on the engineer's house, the Kitsilano house, and there's a home renovation going on there now. There's what do you want to talk about? What projects would you like to highlight?
Yeah, probably we should then go a little bit of what happened and what was the transition over the years and getting involved on all these the passive movement. The next project after I did the Kitsilano renovation for Robert was a project in the interior of BC for a rancher, a pastor to play, the Schellenberg family. They are from Switzerland. So it was a Minergy project that is technically the same, that he had that idea. And at that point, I was contacted just to do that project with the INTEP in Minnesota, that is Stefan Tanner. That was kind of the way that we got involved. So you see, it started evolving, but this one was an industrial project. Imagine if a house is hard to make, when you put into Canadian Food Inspection Agency now, just as another thing that you need to complete a project, it becomes harder and harder to make it happen. So this one, then I realized a second thing, and is the technical aspect, the challenges of mechanical systems. Imagine an abattoir is a big fridge.
Right, right. And the project, this is the pasture to plate project that you're talking about. Yeah.
And when you do that with a client that has that from the business perspective, is his vision, and passive house is what meets that vision. He does about the meat is organic, biodynamic, all of that. So you know that he is just walking, whatever he's saying needs to go full circle. And that's really important. I did for him some other projects as well, a restaurant and all that, but we never got to that point, because as well, there's a responsibility for me to say, kind of stop it. What we have here is the hell of a good building, but we're not going to be pumping money for something that probably is not going to get us anywhere else.
Yeah, it's not going to. Going any further is not going to mean significant greenhouse gas emission reductions or energy savings for the client. It's interesting. It's an interesting example. This pasture to plate abattoir that you designed, because I think folks look at passive house and well, our name, right? And they think we're just houses. And I spend half of my time explaining that unfortunately passive house is a bit of a mistranslation from the German, that virtually any building form can be, or function can be, passive house. And this is one this is one interesting project that you've done with the pasture to plate people, demonstrating that we really are more than houses.
Correct. It's not that sexy. But it still gets me there. At the time, I remember we teamed up with Guido Beamers and Equilibrium as well, on a winery in Canada, and that would be more sexy. Sadly, that one really went on, but it was kind of interesting to see that one happening as well. if that would have happened, would be kind of really cool. But yeah, that's what happens sometimes. So that's kind of what it went with the avatar. That was one thing. Then I moved to Alberta, really, and then that was the thing. Like, so it was gonna take a few years to get there, and it was a surprise because we were really behind compared to BC. So.
Right.
But what happened here for the biggest then is the Valley View project that many people probably know about it. And I have to say it on that one is really the town, the mayor, the council, and at that time the CEO of Valley View, Marty Parlin, and they all came together to say, you know what, let's do this build. They need a new building. They need all the cost analysis of how much does it cost just to renovate, blah, blah, blah. And pretty easily, when you own a building as the government, and you know that you're gonna be operating a building for this 150 plus years or something, you know that you're making money almost from or not making money or not losing money. Let's put it on those terms from day one.
Right.
And that was extremely innovative for a place like Alberta. This is located really up north, so it was also very. I think that for Alberta was really important to have this building as well. Probably you hear over the years people saying, sorry.
I'm sorry, going to say for those who are joining in today, this is the Valley View Town Hall project, and you can Google it, and you can or go to Oscar's website. You can find all sorts of information about Valley View Town Hall. And again, it's not a house. This is a this is a town hall. Very important. I know the importance of town halls to municipal image, and citizens may not or may complain about taxes or whatever, but they're very proud of their municipal infrastructure. And I've heard how proud people are of the Valley View Town Hall. So can you give us some stats about Valley View Town Hall? You know, how, if you recall off the top of your head, because I know you've been involved in a lot of projects, and what was the biggest challenge other than, well, I was going to say, it sounds like it wasn't too difficult to convince council to agree to Passive House when they saw the numbers. But what were some of the, give us some of the stats, some of the technical challenges you faced?
Yeah, in reality, the biggest challenge usually is the technical difficulties of making this thing happen in a remote location. They want this thing that, of course, you're going to get traits that are not all familiar with what we're trying to do. The project also has it was very important, I think, and I always presented as a very interesting way of project delivery, because it was a preliminary design of this thing was done by people that knew what they're doing. Peter was kind of involved on the architectural. I think that Renew Engineering and the mechanical, doing kind of the preliminary with Williams Engineering as well, I should say. All of them were kind of saying, okay, we need to do this. What is that we're going to support the municipality so they can go out for a design build type of project, because that's probably the challenge sometimes, is that because you don't know what you're facing, you end up getting some prices that are totally crazy.
Right.
That's what we need to sometimes control, because we're not doing anything, to be honest, that is super rocket science. But once people see that coming through the desk, and they don't know exactly what is that they're pricing, the contractor doesn't know if he's going to have the person, and sometimes they throw a number that is not right. So
right. So this is we face this all across Canada, the fear of the unknown, we'll call it, where a GC or some group really doesn't know Passive House. It's unknown to them. It's so therefore They don't know what it's going to cost, if any additional amount. And so they put that premium price tag on their quote when really they don't have to.
Correct, and that's why in this case I work with the Scott builders here that, and they really managed to bring that thing to earth and say, no, we can make it, we can be competitive. But at the same time was like an exercise of we need to save money, and sometimes design is the importance of design. We tweak a little bit that design at the beginning just to be sure that we were saving the money, that we were detailing that building in a way, probably a little bit of an overkill, but it was because on the contract we had to deliver building that it was certifiable as Passive House International. So it was a little bit of a challenge just to get there, but it was so rewarding just to see that we can do that type of building all the way up in that location in Alberta.
Well, and a couple of points you make there. The first is a really important one, the importance of good design. If you want to build to Passive House, you have to have good design. You can't allow your architect to run amok and or demand all sorts of extravagant design within the building, because it all has a cost in terms of energy usage. And the second point, I can't say this enough, how important it is for all of Canada to see what's happening in different areas. Passive House Canada is located in BC, but Passive House projects are happening all across the country, including Alberta. This just isn't a British Columbia or an Ontario phenomena. Good things are happening all across the country. And I like to point to the projects you've been working on when I'm talking to folks in the greater Toronto area and down east, just to demonstrate that there's really interesting projects, challenging projects taking place all across the country. So you worked on a low energy house in Vermeer. What can you tell us about this place?
That's probably the next one. And I think that's also a very important message on all of this. Not always you need to go for the biggest projects. And sometimes as architects, I don't tend to do the smaller as well, because it's the same kind of same amount of work, and then the fees are a little bit lower. This one is very interesting. This is a project for Joanna, it's my client, and the daughter Alexandra, and they were kind of the drivers of design and all that. I still show many people this design of this thing started with a drawing from the daughter, saying more or less the way that she wanted that house, and we were from there. And a client that didn't have, as usual, most of the Passive House people that come on that as very educated, but the budget sometimes is not that high. But she was sure that this is what she wanted, and that's what I said. I can help to make that happen. But at the same time, we don't want to build a really big house. We want a smaller house. But she really, I also, because it was small, I also want to try to give a little bit more air, more open space and all that. And at that point, it's like, I could have pushed this thing to be full passive house, a classic or something. And, but it will have end up not being the house that is, or the feeling that it end up getting, or the, so.
And it's, but if I can interject for a second too, and it's something that we've been really trying to emphasize or to drive home, that a Passive House Institute low energy certification is a really good building. It's not third prize or it's something to be really proud about. So that's, low energy is great.
Yeah, and that's probably that's the starting of the kind of the next chapter in my life, and part of what I do these days as well.
Yeah.
I learned that also directly from them, because I have a joke about that, because it was when one of the conferences for Passive House, I was probably in Munich or something, and then the coffee break, I had a chance to chat with Dr. Feist. He came like, "Hey, where are you from?" and all that, and I'm from Calgary. Anyways, oh, that's where, Alberta, Canada. Oops, the guy kind of make the face knowing that it's cold probably. And if there's anything exciting, it was the time that I was working on the Valley View project, and he was probably making the numbers in his head, saying like, you know that we have a new standard, it is the low energy. And I, for myself, said like, this guy is gonna be really surprised to know that we're gonna make a Passive House Plus at this location, in fact. But at the same time, that was kind of the right orientation, the right size of building and all that. When you just have these other challenges of a smaller size, a client, all of that, it's a little bit different. So on this one, we were low energy. We did this also with collective carpentry that is great to work and all that. And with all of that, we were able just to come up with a building that it was still a hell of a good building that is low energy. And the owners that live there, they love it. I was there just a few weeks ago, and it's like, we love it. It's like, it's perfect. The temperature is great. I put did some measurements on quality of air. Well, we had a lot of smoke in everything was burning. And we had a heat wave of 38. And it was like, no, this is kind of the best place to be. Is really inside. That is kind of funny in this location in the summer.
So yeah, it's so really important that a building that meets PHI's low energy standards still is a great place to be in when there's the forest fire smoke that's happening, when it's hot and humid outside. We like to say that Passive House buildings are very climate resilient. And as Canada experiences more and more of the effects of climate change, most likely we will need this quality building. Well, not most likely, we will certainly need these types of buildings to keep us safe, to keep us healthy. And before I forget too, for folks on the show, if you check the chat, Sean St. Amour has very nicely put some links in to the Valley View Town Hall project and to your website as well, Oscar. So you've got lots of good information there about things you've been working on. So thanks, Sean, for doing that.
Probably that website needs an update. Sorry, I just don't keep my marketing all that.
Okay, well,
on TFIM on this project, so we did.
Okay, well, we'll motivate you to update then, because we're telling everybody what your website is. Sorry about that. Now in Edmonton, so you've gone from the low energy house in Vermeer, but you've done some interesting things, multifamily in Edmonton. Tell us about that project.
Yeah, that's the one that it was next year that I want to say that the TFIM project that is not on my website right now. It's pretty new. We are doing it's kind of a developer, Fair David and Ryan, a couple of guys kind of in the neighborhood saying we need to have a different type of urban form here, kind of that real missing middle that all the time kind of we want to do it, but we don't know how to do it or how to implement it on the zoning and things like that. So we have to do kind of everything from scratch. The owners are being very supportive on all this process. And we're doing a 16-unit development that is going to be kind of on 2 buildings, very unique in a sense for building typology, let's call it. And the number of this is going to be a rental project. So that comes also with a different set of requirements, mentality from the owner. operational cost is becoming more and more important. And
Right.
on this one, we got a big a grant as well from the SSCRA here in Alberta, just to evaluate more of what happened with this type of buildings. This one is I know that we're probably always on the PHI side. This one is going to go FIUS, but probably it's going to be exactly the same that we were going similar to a PHI low energy.
Right.
I will
Right.
love to have the money just to do a comparison between the two or get a grant to do that. But again, that's a money sometimes is the limit. And I think that in both, they will work extremely well.
Right.
We still have a hell of a building. And with that project is interesting is to see that with some of the money, it gave us the opportunity to play with many types of mechanical systems, envelopes, and do a bunch of comparisons just to get to a little bit of the sweet spot at that location. So I think that's kind of the work that is very exciting, that is happening, that we now have more products that we can compare, that we can see what we do if we put this type of mechanical system. Is this one really the most cost-effective? Technology is changing every single day.
Yes, yes. Another reason to be involved with Passive House Alberta or Passive House Canada, or hopefully both. We help you stay up to date with what's changing and what's new and exciting. It's interesting. You made a comment about talking to Dr. Feiss, one of the founders of Passive House Institute, and I think sometimes Passive House Institute can't quite figure out all the exciting things that are happening in Canada, and can Canadians actually do this? And we're demonstrating to PHI almost every day that we can push the envelope. We can adapt and adopt the Passive House standard to all different forms and features in very cold climates, in very humid climates. So I know in talking to PHI folks, they're often very impressed by what Canadians are doing, but they shouldn't be surprised, because the DNA of Passive House traces its roots to Canada. Canada made a major contribution to the Passive House standard through the work of the guest of my last show, Dr. Harold Orr, the engineer, one of the engineers from NRCan and the Saskatchewan Research Council, who built a very low energy house way back in 1977. So a lot of what they learned, a lot of what they designed, it's a house that's still lived in, still performing to very high standards. A lot of what they lived in was ultimately adopted by the Passive House Institute and is reflected in their standards. So I take real pleasure in reminding our friends at Passive House Institute that a lot of the roots of what we're doing in Canada started here in Canada. So we know what we're doing, right?
And I should say that, again, the benefit of passive housing, cold climate, is the greatest. So that if we think about this also, that we do it for the good reasons, we've saving tons of energy. So it will be, that's what most people need to realize. This is the right thing to do.
It makes the colder the climate, or the more the extreme the climate, I guess, the more sense it makes, doesn't it? So Southern Ontario, with its warming winters but real humid and muggy summers, can also take great advantage from Passive House in helping folks stay cool and stay cool in the summer and warm enough in the wintertime. So you're right, when you're in these extreme climates, especially as you head to northern Alberta, where it's chilly in the wintertime, it makes more and more important. So just to get back to the conversation, we have We have the 16 rental units you've been working on in Edmonton. How far along are you with that project?
That one is at this moment went for BP. We should probably hear from them in October, and we're trying to start construction November.
Okay, and when will that be finished? When will people move in, would you like?
And that one, I think that we are still probably seeing next fall just to, it will probably go a little quick than expected. It's more about, as usual, the finishes. We're using also kind of very good a polycore system that is kind of a steel with a EPS system for walls and all that, that kind of, it becomes prefabricated and put on site hopefully pretty quickly. It's more about finishing and all that, that is typically what is difficult these days. And if you have been following what does it mean to have a lumber these days, again, I think that we didn't even have TGIs for this project. The joists, they have to price it as trusses or something like that. So it's becoming a little bit hard these days. Hopefully we can make it move it along once we do that. But for next year, it should be people just moving to the rental units.
So you have the 16 rental units in Edmonton, but you're also doing something interesting in Calgary with a fourplex.
Yeah, I have a number of projects here that are not passive. That is kind of the fourplex, sixplex. Has been really good that I've been working with a company here that is called Ballard Developments, and we have been done so far kind of 3 of those market multifamily townhouse type of projects. So over that relationship with them, and what I do in past, we said like we need to explore that way. So I'm glad that the 3 guys that manage the company, Stella, Chris, and Fred, they have been really cool with me, saying like, we trust you. Let's see if we can make it our next project. One of these ones a passive. So it's still a risk, but it's still, we're gonna try to minimize the risk as much as we can, including selecting the site that is probably makes more sense and all those type of things. So that one was going for DP right now. And this one are gonna be 4 units, market units. Then it's a little bit of a different client. When you have a rentals is one thing, when you are trying to sell this thing is another thing. But still, I believe that there's the need and the market probably is not many people want to build a single family house, but some people understand that we need to also change the way that we live. And that's the kind of what we're trying to do with this other project here in Calgary. Still, because it's new, because the municipality probably never had seen one of these, we still need help from them just to move along and be sure that this thing moves in the right direction. Of course, we have some issues with the typical thing of planning, because ideally you need to be facing south with this building and all that. So we need to start tweaking a few things that by the book are not kind of the things that they want to see, but hopefully we can get through and they see the value of having one of these projects, this type of projects here in Calgary.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing you talked about, these are obviously homes that will be for sale to the general public. And I don't know what your experience is, but I know when talking to architects and builders who build to the Passive House standard and even get their buildings certified, single family residences, small MERBs, that sort of thing. I recall one builder from BC telling me he's never yet sold a house because it was a Passive House. Yeah. Every house he sells, he gets them certified Passive House, but every house he sells, people buy them because they are comfortable and they are healthy and then lower down the list, they're energy efficient. And then when they start to learn about Passive House, well, they become very proud of their building, and it's a Passive House building, but that's not why they bought it to begin with. So we need to be mindful of that in the industry, that we continue to talk about healthy, comfortable, low energy buildings that happen to be Passive House, Passive House certified if possible. Just an interesting observation, because in my job where I live and breathe Passive House day in and day out, you assume everybody knows about Passive House. But shockingly, we don't. But
and it's the same. It's a word like net zero will be probably so much better, because probably marketing efforts have been gone through that a little bit more or something. So that's usually the challenge. But I think that we do it the same. We will passive just because it's kind of the right principles applied, and it's something that is the value added to something that is already a good product, and it's the same that you say, like really is what is the type of building, the environment, the quality of air that you're gonna get, and that's what it makes a difference. And that's probably the shift right now, is that people is putting more value on those aspects of the construction, and it's maybe, or my hope is that they're gonna start demanding more of that in the future for
that quality building, that Passive House, the Passive House techniques results in a more resilient, more durable building. It's all important. So a couple of things, just interested in your perspective around the challenges and the opportunities building in prairies and cold climates. I know you had some comments around mechanical systems. Not sure if you want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, no, again, it's the same comment that I made, that the technology is changing dramatically every time. And it's like, again, one thing with the project, for example, in Ballard, like air-to-air heat pumps. We select one for that building that it was able to go to minus 20, I believe. And the temperature in Valley View drops to minus 40. So you have to do a few tricks just to keep that running a little bit longer. But the funny part is that I think that the contractor signed the order for the unit, and 2 weeks later, there was another unit that it was able to go to minus 27. So it's like little by little, you just keep going, and technologies. But then now you don't have to do as many tricks as you have to do just to get to that point. So that's probably what it is. But it's like we all are learning. That's part of probably the other kind of mini project that underline all of this, and you were mentioning, it's for me being part of Passive House Alberta and have this kind of new group of people that is really made up of the volunteers and the community that probably doesn't exist, and probably we chat about that sometime before, like feeling that you're not alone, that you're not the only crazy one trying to do this, and start just to build this a community. We're lucky just to get some money way back to just have kind of small courses, a day courses, and I think that many of those, for what I hear, because I get in touch with some of them, move even just to take the full training with you guys at Passive House Canada. And now we have a bunch of new people that is certified here, that know what they want, that they probably are willing to take it into all these projects, more designers, more builders and all that. And that's what we need to start that transformation. So more than the particulars, is just to be sure that you want to learn what is going on in new technologies and the challenges, and specifically understand what happens in your location. If one thing is cold, but what you're saying, if you're in Ontario, is humid. Oh, hell God, I don't want to be dealing with that type of project. Here we have really dry conditions, so we have a total different approach, and we need to start just learning about that. here, as you were saying, the sun is here, so let's go and play with it. Do rely also on solar for our projects and things like that is extremely important. So that's more than the actual number that I can start telling you about the mechanical systems or something like that, is that we need to learn and we need to chat with the people that is in there. I think that the beauty of this community is that we all want to share our knowledge, our experience, tell people that this thing worked, this thing probably didn't work, or be careful to do this, because when you just go through the process, you discover that you need to move that switch, otherwise it's not gonna work, or something like that. So those are I think the real important issues. I also think the important issue is to let people know once they use the building or leave the building, how they feel, what is that they found great or bad, because it's the same also comfort level. And we're selling sometimes this one for comfort is different for people. Not everyone has the same lecture on comfort, but adapting comfort in a passive house is way easier than doing it in any other building. So those are the things that we tend to forget. And when design, it's like we need to do a design that is still something that inspires people inside, that make them feel great. And so we cannot really just push passive for the sake of passive. Is my take. Is like we need to still see this in a holistic way. Why this person is going to live here? The reason there is a owner is going to operate this business from a passive house. All those sentiments need to be reflected on the building.
Yeah, no, very good. It's just can't. It's not passive for the sake of passive. It's those benefits. What are those benefits to the folks who are living or working or playing in those buildings? So it's a lot more complex than saying passive house is all about energy savings. It's not. It's much more than that. And you've highlighted some good ones. So it's almost 10 to 1. We've got about 10 minutes left, and I know there are some questions. Deb, we'll invite Deb back in to pull some of the questions out and put them in front of us.
Yeah, sure. Actually, I wanted to invite, if you'd like, Constantine has a couple of questions here that you are more than welcome to unmute yourself and ask. Otherwise, I'm happy to ask them on your behalf. And in the meantime, we'll start at the bottom here. Just a question from Olivia asking, are there any other online resources that you usually refer to for technical design? To Oscar.
Yeah, for me, it depends where I'm looking. I just have some kind of Bibles from Europe that I keep kind of next to my desk, just to learn or to explore what it was done really or what is done sometimes in other places. And as well, trying to be on top of the list of products. There's a couple of websites, I don't have it here with me, that show kind of a bunch of different window manufacturers that are around. And then the problem with that is that you need to start digging on each one and see what is the difference. And so there's still kind of a lot of work that needs to be done around finding that information a little bit more easier, or that people can just narrow down their choices. But it's coming. Again, we don't have that many, and most of the time is what you have available. Like a mechanical system. I don't play with very fancy mechanical systems. I ask the local people what is the brand that they will be more comfortable using or servicing, because I don't want to install something in a place and they have to fly one guy from I don't know where to maintain it. So I think that my approach is not that high level. It just down to areas like who's gonna service that unit, and then I explore the unit to be sure that we can make it work for that application.
And before I turn the mic over to Constantine, I think what you're saying, Oscar, too, it really highlights why it's important to join organizations like Passive House Alberta, Passive House Canada, for the networking. We know in our socials, we'll have a presentation about something, but it's the conversations that take place afterwards around coffee or perhaps something stronger, and people ask questions. The one comment I'll make, or the one thing I've noticed about the Passive House community is that during the day, they are fierce competitors. Everyone is going after the business and they compete with one another. But after hours, I've never met such a wonderful community where information is shared.
So I don't agree with you on that one, because they're the same, but the community is so small on this one. I don't think that we go after each other's business. We go after the business of the people that is not doing what we're doing, and we team up just to change the building practice.
Okay.
So I think that should be the goal of everyone involved with passive right now. And it's not that we are just compete for the same type of building. It's that we're just trying to take all the from all those buildings that are built at subpar and make it better.
And make it better. So Constantine, you had a couple of questions or comments. Hi there.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Hi, Chris, Oscar, Deborah. This is a great meeting to share ideas and exchange ideas as well regarding Passive House. I have a lot of questions. I'm going to touch only two of them right now. First of all, the problem with the municipality is that they follow SB 12, which is as per the building code, and they get confused with the Passive House requirements, specifically with all the very complicated calculations that even some mechanical engineers have troubles to decipher them. Anyway, but designing a passive house, it's a very simple process. I'm talking about this simple process because I have more than 40 years in this business, and my background is from Europe, and I know very well how the houses are designed there. There are 5 principles in designing a good passive house. If we follow these principles and apply them strictly and make sure that the contractor is following your details and doesn't mess with the details that you specify, I guess we can achieve a good results. But again, I'm saying that to get a passive house designation or certification, it's an extremely complicated process, makes everything very complicated on the burden of the poor architect who has to deal with homeowners. I'm talking about low-rise residential building. I'm not talking for municipal and industrial and high-rise buildings where you have different type of clients. But all homeowners are very concerned how they're going to spend their money. And this is where the problem arises immediately. Mm-hmm. Anyway, this is the first question. The second question is, we have to have a pretty good list and idea from the government of Canada or maybe from the local governments of each province, what kind of perks homeowners, I'm talking homeowners, will receive if they follow the principles of passive house design. This is not very clear. Maybe there is information. I do have some information, but to forward this to the clients, it's sometimes very complicated. And again, everything comes to the bottom line, fees, because if you want a good design, you have to pay the proper fees. Otherwise, we as architects will be out of business. Mm-hmm. This is my comment.
They're very good comments. I don't know, Oscar, if you have any, if you want to comment. I've got a couple of things, but we should start with you, Oscar.
Yeah, I think that we need to realize that these projects require a little bit extra work and fees should reflect that as well. Sadly, it's the same that sometimes people is comparing some services, but they don't exactly know what is included or what is the difference of what you can provide. And sometimes it's the same with design. It's like, oh, this is an architect, the other is an architect, but the difference, I'm just getting an architect. And I can tell you, just knowing what you're doing on Passive House can save the client without building anything, quite a bit of money right at the beginning. So that's part of the exercise that we as professionals need to start doing in that sense. The second part was a certification right there. Needs to be simplified, and I believe in certification because it's really our quality control, but it needs to be less complicated, and the amount of information needs to be reduced and all that in order to make it more affordable. I think the clients these days, they already know that they're putting some extra money, and they feel a little bit penalized now because they need to put some extra just for something that is, and what they tell me sometimes is, oh, it's just a plaque that I'm gonna get. No, thank you. But it's more than that, and I think that we need to keep working with PHI or whatever agency providing that certification and the certifiers to be sure that we have a system that it kind of is easier, is more affordable, and really reward this type of project and to get through the process of getting the building certified.
Certified, yes. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. We hear all the time how complex the process of certification. It shouldn't be difficult for single family residents or a small building to be certified, but for whatever reason it is. So stay tuned as Passive House Canada works with our partners to try and simplify and reduce the costs of that process. It's really important to have as many certified buildings in the database so that we can compare and we can learn from, especially around performance, and we can move that ahead. I know we need to keep talking to all levels of government. And we need to, make them understand or help them understand the benefits of building to Passive House with regards to them meeting their climate change agenda. There are municipalities that may not hand out cash, but will certainly allow some bonusing in terms of footprint size. There are others who will expedite permitting. So it's just not going to government and asking for money. There's other things government can do to speed up the process for Passive House for low carbon building in general. So at Passive House, we're busy talking to all levels of government about how they need to step up. And of course, with changes to the National Building Code and with the Government of Canada's commitment to a net zero ready building, that is really creating the impetus for all of us to move in that direction. Soon, that's going to be the only way to build. So whether or not there's some government funding will become more and more relevant as building codes change. But having said that, we need lots of training. So I see, Oscar, that we've pretty much run out of time. We've spent an hour and we haven't got to all the questions yet, but I wanted to thank you for your time today and your commitment to Passive House and your commitment to low carbon buildings. I know we're going to hear a lot from you in the months and years ahead as you blaze the trail for us in your neck of the woods. I'm happy to say too that, and you touched on it, that the collaboration between Passive House Alberta and Passive House Canada in offering training You know, I'm again, stay tuned for announcements, but we're really happy to be working with Passive House Alberta to provide a Passive House Canada training where that's applicable. What I'll do is I'll say thank you to you, Oscar. I'll ask that we pop up the last couple of slides here for today's presentation, and then we'll let you get on with your day. So we have a really exciting event coming up September 22nd to 23rd. You know, a lot of the work, a lot of the conversation we have is around new buildings. But in much of Canada, it's the retrofitting of existing buildings that is going to create a real difference and is really going to provide opportunity for designers and general contractors and tradespeople in the coming years. If Canada is to meet its Paris Accord climate change goals, it can't ignore the deep energy retrofits to about 10,000 towers across the country. So I'm happy to tell the building industry about this need and to get them thinking about this need. What we're doing at Passive House Canada is focusing on this with our Tower Retrofit Symposium. We've partnered with the Tower Renewal Partnership to bring this to you. So if you are at all interested in maybe opening up a new line of business, or you're in this line of business and you want to learn more, join us September 22nd, 23rd. All the details at passivehousecanada.com. And we'll go to the last slide, which is simply our thank you. Thank you, Oscar, for joining us today and for your leadership. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. If you want to learn more about Passive House Canada, if you want to learn more about the extensive training that we offer to the building industry here in Canada, visit our website, passivehousecanada.com. Hope to see you there. Hope to see you at our Tower Symposium coming up at the end of September. So everyone, have a wonderful day. Have a very safe week. And until next time, take care. Bye for now.